Hello friends! Today I wanted to show you my living room. There were a few needs that we considered when we designed this living room. The first is that we have a growing family and currently have 3 young kids, all under the age of 5. So everything really needs to be functional and not too precious. The second consideration is that the living room is actually just one end of the great room, which is composed of the kitchen, dining, and living areas. And so it needed to be cohesive with the whole space. And then the last consideration is related to energy. If you've seen some of my other videos, we meant for this to be a passive home. So there are design elements here that optimize for passive energy gain, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. As you can see on our layout, we technically have roughly 20 by 12 feet or so for our living room space. However, the sides are meant to be walkways, and we wanted to keep that uninterrupted sightline to that big window at the end of the kitchen. And so taking out these sides, we really functionally have a real space that's 16 by 10 or so. We were really drawn to asymmetry when we were building this house. So this whole great room structure, if you look from the outside, it has a single sloped roof. We wanted to echo the same asymmetrical structure inside, and so the ceiling is of course slanted in the same angle, and we wanted this asymmetry to continue throughout on this wall and in our furnishings. This living room wall also functions as the bookend of this whole open concept space, so we knew this was going to be a highly visible space from the kitchen, from the dining room, and obviously from the living room itself, and we wanted it to reflect the design of the rest of the house. So talking a little bit more about this wall, the niche in the middle is meant for a TV that's up to 65 inches in size. As you can see, we've lived here for more than 5 years now and we still haven't put a TV yet, and we just functionally haven't needed a TV here. We do have a separate TV/playroom where it's meant to be messy, meant to be loud, and that's where we currently watch TV. And we just haven't had the need to add it to this main space. Now, if you're designing your own space, you could argue, well, do you really want a niche to cap your TV at 65 inches? What if you need a bigger TV in the space? Fair point, and that's all subjective. My husband and I have had a pretty similar discussion. Our conclusion was that beyond a certain size of TV, it would start to look disproportionate, and that TV would become like such a focal point of this wall. So I think roughly half of the wall, aka 65 inches, is really the max I want to go ever in a TV. And if we needed something bigger, it should go into a different space. The niche is actually not quite centered in this space, and that's intentional, again, echoing the asymmetry of the structure. The wood itself is a walnut. The walls, we went with an off-white paint, and it reads mostly as white, but because we live in Minnesota, and especially in the winter like it is now, the colors that bounce off of the snow tends to be a little bit blue, and so everything inside the house needed to be a little bit on the warmer tone to counteract that. Moving down to the fireplace/mantle area, we knew we didn't want like a small defined mantle, but instead have one long linear mantle. And hence we went with this whole section that is covered with this stone. If you're building or remodeling and considering using this kind of large format stone, talk to your builder or whoever's installing this thing about where you want the line to show up. Because I mean, obviously you can buy a giant stone that has no lines and there are no cuts throughout your entire mantle, but this is a pretty large space, and so it's a little harder to find a piece of stone that is that big and not astronomical in price. It made the most sense for us to have the cut right here, kind of behind the accent chair, and could hopefully blend in with the rest of the niche that would have things in it. Like it would be a little more like cluttered over here anyway, and so this cut would be less distracting. I'm not sure if you even notice it if I'm showing you from far away, but as the homeowner, I feel like you would be able to notice all the smaller things and all the mistakes, if you will. So make sure you put some thought into where you want those seams to be. I love this gray stone, and it's a little different in that there is actually a little bit of brownish, goldish veining that goes throughout, and it reads as warm even though it's gray. I think it goes really well with the concrete, and it also goes really well with the wood. And personal pet peeve of mine, have you seen those houses that have like gray walls, gray cabinets, gray counters, but all like different kinds of gray, but all still really cool toned? That look doesn't make any sense to me. You need something warm in there to balance it. Personal opinion, and design is all subjective, I know. Anyway, moving further down, we have a little niche that is also made of the same walnut wood, and the lighting under there just adds a little bit of interest. When we designed it, we didn't really have a specific purpose in mind of what that niche would be. We designed this house before kids, so we thought we would put some interesting objects or like coffee table books or something fun. Currently, it's housing children's books, but it's actually a perfect spot because the kids can reach, and the living room is a very natural spot to read to children. So we do end up using the space for reading quite a bit. If you're enjoying this so far, huge favor to give this a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers at some point, and your support really means a lot to me, so thank you for doing that. Now, regarding the fireplace itself, it is a gas fireplace. It's not ideal for designing a passive home that has minimal energy usage and going away from fossil fuels. However, we don't use it very often. It's mostly for ambiance. And with kids, you can't really turn it on very often anyway because they will get there and get themselves burned. We went with a rectangular fireplace that has a very clean, modern look. And until I built a house, I didn't even realize the number of options you can have for these little stones inside. We went with the simplest, cleanest, colorless glass option. I know you can put like colorful stones and like wood logs and whatever, but I know for us, we wanted to go as minimalist as possible with the fireplace. The frame holding the netting is a matte black, and that comes with the fireplace. And really the netting is there just to prevent anyone from touching the glass of the fireplace, which would obviously be hot when the fireplace is on. And if you wanted to, you can pretty easily remove the whole frame if you wanted that really clean glass look. As far as the design and the art that we place on the wall, we knew we wanted to continue to play up the asymmetry that is consistent throughout the house. One side of the wall is bigger than the other side, one side is taller, one side is shorter. We kind of played with a lot of different layouts, but what we ended up on is having a large kind of feature piece on the shorter but fatter side of the wall, because I think that side is the more noticeable side. It calls for like something that's big and prominent. We found this one on Minted, and we chose a matte black frame that I think goes really well with all the other black accents. I didn't actually realize this until we got this mounted here. The colors on this piece of art is basically the same colors that we see outside at our window in the winter. I guess I'm really consistent with what I like to look at. And then the plants underneath it is also kind of by trial and error. We knew we wanted something very organic looking with irregular shapes. A tall plant that cuts into the hard lines of that painting, plus something that's trailing and dangling down on the side, is kind of the look we were going for. Please excuse this little guy. We were gone in Hong Kong for 3 weeks and didn't water him, and he's looking a little sad right now. I'm hoping he comes back. I promise you, a couple months ago, it was lush and the green leaves were just draping over the books. It was gorgeous. Now it's a little questionable, but hopefully, fingers crossed that it comes back. On the thinner and taller side of the wall, we didn't want something that's the same size or scale or same height as the other side because we wanted it to be intentionally asymmetrical. In my mind, I actually had a line that's angling down kind of opposite the way the ceiling goes up, so that this picture would be the tallest, and then the TV would be slightly down if we had a TV. And then on this side, it would be further down. And I wanted to intentionally leave a good amount of blank space on the top and not kind of fill it up all the way to the ceiling. We went with different shaped objects. So we had one framed piece of art, a round marble clock, and I like the contrast on the textures and the shape. And the shiny marble tones kind of mirror this kind of stone here, but it's still a little different. So I think it goes along with the scheme without being too matchy. And then at the bottom, we put a plant. This one came from my sister, actually. It's a dried floral arrangement, and it's actually lasted really well for like 2 years. When this one goes, we'll probably replace it with a similar height of irregular shaped plant structure. We kept the rest of the mantle pretty clean. Of course, functionally, you do need a space to catch all the random things like masks and rubber bands and keys and just knick-knack items that go nowhere. So we designated a spot for all of those random stuff to go. And then as far as objects for the mantle, we kept it very minimal and only on the objects that we actually love and have a meaning to us. So this mug is actually my first like nice coffee mug. It's actually not a very good coffee mug. As you can see, it's been demoted to be a pencil holder, but it looks really cute and I like it here. This chair is a Memorial Terrace chair from Madison, and that's where my husband and I went to school, and that's also where we met, so it has meaning to us. And then this hello sign we got from West Elm. It was actually one of the decorations we used at our wedding. And so none of this looks obviously souvenir-y, and it somehow blends really well with the colors and the scheme of the rest of the house. I think we're just really consistent people with the aesthetic that we like. And then this candle is a functional item. Sometimes you just need to freshen up the house a little bit. And then these other candles are the Encanto candle, if you recognize it from the movie. My children are obsessed and they have the magical candle and they love it. Next, let's talk about the furnishing. As you can see, it's all very mismatched and asymmetric, and obviously that is on purpose to be consistent with the rest of the house. With it being an open concept space and then with the sides being walkways, there are really no walls to guide us to where the furniture should be. Or you can look at it as you can do whatever you want with this open space and it could be correct. We knew we didn't want the standard placement of the couch kind of facing the fireplace because that would kind of block off the flow towards the kitchen, towards the dining room. So we toyed with whether we want two love seat sized things or do we want like individual chairs. We ended up with the two couches kind of facing each other, but we chose different couches. The gray one is the Sven couch from Article. It's pretty affordable for what it is, and it's really comfortable actually. It's held up really well despite my children like daily jumping on it, rearranging it, building forts out of it. And this gray color is perfect for hiding wear and tear. We chose the gray one to be on this side because this is where you get to look out the big windows and enjoy the view outside. On this other side, we put a leather daybed that we got from CB2. I like the warmth of it. I like that leather texture, and leather is actually pretty easy to clean up when you have kids. You just gotta make sure you wipe it down right away. But otherwise, it hasn't been too bad in terms of maintenance. Obviously, when they poke at it with sharp objects, it's gonna leave a mark. But then leather also like ages with time, and it could just look interesting. So we're gonna roll with whatever texture and patterns show up on this leather couch. And then right against the mantle is a fun chair. We wanted to pick a chair that's fun to look at and ties the space together, and we fell in love with this chair called the Cat's Pajamas that's from Blue Dot. It came in all sorts of different colors, but I think the yellow and pink and green are kind of repeated colors throughout our house, and so that's what we went with. I love the angular nature of the shell of this chair. It's very modern and it's very us. I love it. With this irregular arrangement, it was kind of hard to pick a coffee table. And additionally, with children, it's just always hard to find a coffee table that can be moved out of the way if they wanted to play with something on the floor and like easily moved back, doesn't have hard corners, like there's just too many requirements. And so we found these hexagons from Blue Dot. They come in both leather, which the green one is leather, and they also come in this felt material. So we got them in 3 different sizes and put them together to function as the coffee table. And this black tray is an additional thing that you can purchase and put on one of these hexagons to like have a flatter surface to actually put a drink, which we don't because we have children and they're just gonna knock it over. The nice thing for these is A, if you have kids, they can't really like get very badly injured running into them, so that's really nice. And B, you can easily rearrange them. If I need a footrest when I'm like reading a book to the kids, for example, I move one of the hexagons closer to the gray couch so that my feet have a place to rest. Or if we have guests over, they can easily be turned into additional seating. Or the children also love using them as a fort building material. And that's all okay. Like none of this is too precious to use. And we want our home to feel like home to all of us, not just the grown-ups. The rug is a wool rug. It's 12 by 9 feet. We got this from West Elm. I will give this like a B-, honestly. I love the pattern and the color goes really well. However, it was losing this fuzz for so long and it was driving me insane. It's finally gotten to a point where it's kind of at steady state and not losing any more fuzz. But in the beginning, man, like daily vacuums, we would fill up a whole can and it would get on all our clothes and the pillows. It was not very fun. There was this other rug that was my first choice. It was olive green. It had these fun patterns. I'll try to find a picture. It was literally the perfect rug. However, it was like $6,000, so we had to pass on it. I still have dreams about this rug. Maybe one day. One day, if I suddenly have $6,000 and I don't have any other use for it, it's still on my list. The rug both helps to define the space that we consider living room, but also helps to give some warmth and comfort to the concrete floor. We opted for a concrete floor. It's a polished concrete, and the reason for this is because it's a good thermal mass to absorb passive energy from sunlight that comes through our windows in the winter time, so that the house can be passively heated and we spend less on additional heating. Our windows and the pergola outside are designed in such a way that in the summertime, actually, the sun angle prevents much of the sunlight from coming in, and so we're not absorbing additional passive heat when we don't need it in the summer. For the overall design aesthetics of this space, we knew we wanted it to be consistent with the rest of the house, which is really modern but kind of casual and cozy and warm. And we try to achieve that by basically contrast. So there's a lot of black and white, but also pops of color. There are harder lines, very angular shapes, like the rectangular frame and the rectangular fireplace. There are also more rounded and softer shapes, like the plants or like the marble clock. It's a mix of organic textures and inorganic items. The plant material is organic, the fuzzy pillows, the different textiles that we use in the couch, in the ottoman, and in the rug, contrasted with the super smooth and sleek surfaces that are glass and stone and metal throughout the design. The last couple of things I wanted to show you are functional things. If you're designing your living room or remodeling, it's nice to look at cute design elements and like what something looks like, but there are all these super functional things you don't want to forget when you execute it. So I want to highlight these at the end here. For electrical outlets, we have a few hidden spots. So obviously there are the ones along the wall, but there's also one incorporated on the ground. This is currently hidden by the rug and we're not using it right now. Originally, it was meant to go over either a coffee table or a chair if you wanted to add a floor lamp. I think the floor lamp with the asymmetrical arm draping somewhere, that's still something we have on our wish list. However, with small children who will knock it over, it's just not the right time for us right now. But it's good to have that available either for the lamp or even if you're sitting on a couch and you want to charge a laptop, for example. The other hidden spot is right in this niche where we're putting children's books. It's a great spot for if you need an additional access point for charging a phone, for example. Where the TV niche is located, there is actually an outlet behind this walnut wood, and it's currently marked with a pencil. You can't really see it from far away, so that when we do eventually want to add a TV, we know exactly which spot to drill to access our electricals. Our fireplace controls are tucked in on the side here. There's also obviously a remote, but we actually find ourselves just pressing this button as we come downstairs because this is right next to the stairs anyway, and so that's pretty much equally convenient for us. For lighting, we have these dimmable can lights. They're also connected to our smart home system, and so we can tell Google or tell our phone to help us turn on and turn off and dim the lights. I hope you enjoyed this quick tour of my living room, and I hope you got some ideas from it. Please let me know if you have any questions and subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!